You know how his whole meme thing is that he's apparently willing to have his mind changed? It's the thing he's most known for, aside from being racist and homophobic for attention. And yet, in the last 12 or so years, you might be shocked to learn that Steven Crowder has only claimed to have changed his mind once. And that was about now liking Elon Musk, because of course. Also, the first 8 minutes of that video has Crowder talking about how he still thinks electric cars aren't good for the environment, nor are subsidies for electric cars good. But he needed autopilot because of an ailment of his wife, and also he drove one and they're fun to drive. So he changed his mind on Tesla specifically. Bravo, Steven. Anyway, hey, and geez, why has this amazing feat of changing your mind about a product your wife needed only happened once? Is Steven just always super right about everything he says? Or perhaps, maybe, it's just that the rest of those Change My Mind videos aren't private, personal stories that involve driving a cool car and his wife's medical needs, but rather they're debates that play out like...
What example will we point to before we go on? Because I know a lot of times we disagree, of a successful socialist country.
Well, there are different kinds of socialism. I think you're thinking of the Soviet Union and Venezuela when you say these are unsuccessful countries. But you also have Sweden, you have Norway, you have Finland, you have Denmark, you have Germany.
Sure.
These are countries that have robust economies and high levels of socialization.
Right. What's their minimum wage?
I don't have the numbers off the top of my head.
What if I told you that they have no minimum wage?
There are plenty of countries that have high minimum wage. Australia has a high minimum wage.
I know, but we didn't talk about them. We talked about a successful socialist economies.
Ooh, he totally got him! Steven totally destroys a random college student, is what they all will say. Except Germany actually has a minimum wage, and the rest of those countries have trade unions that set wages for different industries. And so in Norway, for example, an unskilled worker still makes the equivalent of about $15 an hour. But that kid, who actually owns Crowder later in the video, and was also on a little fascist Little America First show, so I don't know. But the point is, he isn't necessarily going to know this stuff, because he's just going off the top of his head, while Steven has come to his campus specifically setting up a topic he's gathered information on beforehand. Information that, in this case, was just wrong, and in a lot of cases, he's cherry-picking, versus some dude who can't readily access information backing up their point. This is why these videos are not so much convincing to watch as they are frustrating. It's frustrating to debate someone when you're unprepared, isn't it, Steven?
This is important. I'm going to defend myself here, because you have someone here at the ready, and what you do is, instead of bringing up information, this is what happens with Christopher Titus, right? You don't have information that you bring up. You have another guy look up a source that you specifically want him to find.
I didn't ask him to bring that up.
Yes,
He just
you
brought
did.
it up.
And he brought up Washington Post and goes, this is what's wrong with your article, taking a joke
he
out
had
of
already been
context.
talking. You didn't have a joke, and all he did was pull up some f***ing
two
information.
people bringing up information, me without a laptop.
No, that's Steven going against top debate mind Joe Rogan about marijuana, something Steven has made entire videos trying to convince people is bad. His claim to Rogan is that since he's a user of the pot, he just wants it to be good for you and is cherry-picking studies to back him up. Emoji of hand-rubbing chin.
Something else, a lot of people are going to be surprised when I say benefits of tobacco or its active constituent here, nicotine. Controversial, I know. Nicotine, when separated, by the way, from the dangerous habit of cigarettes, specifically inhaled tobacco, not the boogeyman it's made out to be. And I know you're going to say, well, I'm just trying to justify this habit. All right, in order of safety, it goes cigarettes, and then and then probably chew and snuff. What is it? The Swedes snus in the nose?
Snooze.
I don't know. And then it goes
You put
down
that in the nose?
Then it goes probably cigars and pipes because you're not. And then it would go to vaporized nicotine, pure nicotine or nicotine gum. Nicotine by itself actually eliminated from tobacco. When they did studies on mice, it was almost impossible for them to get the mice addicted to nicotine by itself.
Hey! That's not true. But I'm getting in the weeds again here, and not the cool weeds that Steven hates. Steven, who smokes cigars that are totally good for him. And so, yeah, of course he doesn't change his mind by randomly interviewing college kids. He has specifically designed it so that he doesn't have to. But maybe facing an actual life or death experience would perhaps actually change his mind about something. Despite all of the other chances he's disingenuously given himself, perhaps this was the chance. Perhaps going to the hospital is the dark third act to Steven's character arc, resulting in a Hallmark Channel change of heart.
But what a brilliant business model to create a vaccine and then God knows what's going to happen with the variant, because there are variants with all kinds of coronaviruses that have existed since the beginning, since the inception of coronaviruses. And now, because of a variant, you need another booster. And of course, there will be another variant, and you're going to need another booster. You basically so once you join that circus, you better stick along for the ride for the rest of your life.
Nope. That wily vaccine business model got to him first. So yeah, almost literally the day he was back on air, he started questioning the overall consensus of medical experts. You know, the group of people who, according to him, saved his life and cashed in on being a contrarian who pretends like doctors can't do shit for you. And alternatives like ivermectin are the only chance you have.
If you go to the hospital now, they say, go home and take Tylenol, come back in, and they toss you on a ventilator. In other words, let's say ivermectin were used, which it has been in some other countries. We cannot argue whether it's been used effectively or not, because that's not allowed on YouTube. However,
I think we could say Joe Rogan did effectively use it, though, or at least in his opinion.
Along with the monoclonal,
monoclonal and the vitamin
antibodies.
Weirdly enough, Crowder's vast medical knowledge is, in this case, incorrect. And you know, I don't think we need to do the work to explain the effectiveness of the vaccines or the ivermectin stuff, especially since we just did that. And if you haven't yet, maybe you should, definitely get vaccinated. The point is that, of course, Steven Crowder is going to snake his way into appealing to the anti-vaccine crowd, proudly tweeting, in case it wasn't eminently clear, no, I have not taken the mRNA vaccine. And, that's weirdly specific, my guy. Like, that just means you got the J&J shot, right? It's really obvious, actually, right? Much like Tarko Karblung and Dave Theodore Rubin, of course he got the vaccine. It's obvious even with your highly specific and careful wording. So why does Crowder suddenly not trust doctors right after being treated by doctors? Does he have one of them memento brain things where his memory wipes every 10 minutes? Has anyone checked him for tattoos? Why would this seemingly principled man who is super concerned about trusting doctors suddenly trust doctors when his life was actually in danger? Surely he can't be like a total hypocrite, right? Or like completely full of shit. Oh no, it might be that. Hey, thanks for watching that clip. Here's the evergreen end plate to ask you to like and subscribe. It's any day of the year where you are.